Enjoy 1% merchant commission when you accept Lanka Pay cards. Contact these banks today.
Day wage workers in some of the most marginalized in the country, such as the Balaya Hamakal or the Hill Country Tamil community. Domestic transitional justice processes further lost the confidence of victims' families, while the Global Alliance of National Human Rights Institutions had recommended that Sri Lanka's Human Rights Commission be downgraded. Protesters against the dire economic situation came under fierce attack by law enforcement agencies, with arbitrary arrests and excessive use of force leading to injuries and deaths. States of emergency and emergency regulations were used to give sweeping powers to authorities to arrest and detain people without due process or judicial oversight. The excessive and disproportionate use of the Prevention of Terrorism Act were condemned by national and international human rights groups, while amendments to the PTA failed to address key human rights.
The protest movement was a seminal point in the life of Sri Lanka. The fact that it was a protest movement that of course had a combination of causal factors, but what stood out is the mass economic crisis, the macroeconomic crisis characterized by the triple burden of unemployment, of poverty, inequality, rising in inflation, and the response of the population to that crisis. Now, when the government is responding, it is important that we do not separate rights obligations and development obligations, because many governments tend to choose that we are now doing development, not rights. Amartya Sen, a son of this region, speaks about development as freedom. So pronounced absence of human rights in a development context materially affects development itself, because accountability, empowerment, and questions of expression come only when people are able to meet, to discuss the impact of development policy on themselves, so that you have rights respecting economy. Ultimately, at the end of the day, international development assistance should not diminish human rights. It should advance human rights. So the role of Amnesty International and civil society partners and the human rights movement is to hold government to account for the promise that they make under international law and also under domestic law. That is our primary principle. We will not be able to go pound for pound analyzing every aid initiative coming from the different partners you have mentioned. The government cannot, like other governments we are seeing in the sub-region, deploy repressive legislation as an instrument of political accumulation. The government cannot team up with others that are operating authoritarian projects in their countries and sort of copycat legislation from them and implement here. We are urging and calling on the Sri Lanka government to use human rights standards, which are guaranteed under international human rights law, as the basis of protecting and responding to people who have come out of a protest movement that is clearly raising issues that are of concern here in the country.